My dear friend, welcome. I am truly grateful that you have chosen to spend this precious time with me today. In an era obsessed with the latest techniques, newest strategies, and cutting-edge tactics, you have made the profound choice to seek something far more enduring, the timeless principles that have built every great civilization and created every lasting achievement in human history. In the next hour, I will reveal to you the ancient success secret that enabled Marcus Aurelius to rule the Roman Empire while maintaining his philosophical integrity, that allowed Confucius to influence Chinese civilization for over 2 millennia, and that empowers modern leaders like Jordan Peterson to transform millions of lives through eternal truths. This is not about learning new methods. This is about embodying the unchanging principles that make all methods effective. Before we embark on this journey into timeless wisdom, I ask that you take a moment to like this message and subscribe. For when we gather as students of eternal principles, we connect with the accumulated wisdom of every great leader who has ever lived. Chapter 1. The Great Deception of Modern Success Culture. There exists a fundamental deception pervading modern success culture, the belief that achievement comes from mastering techniques rather than embodying principles. This deception has created a generation of individuals who collect strategies like trophies, but lack the foundational character to implement them effectively. The masses chase the latest productivity system, the newest sales methodology, the most recent leadership framework, believing that the right technique will finally unlock their potential. Yet they remain trapped in cycles of temporary improvement, followed by inevitable regression, never understanding why their efforts fail to create lasting transformation. The truth that history's greatest leaders have understood is this: techniques change with time and circumstance, but principles are eternal. When you build your life upon principles rather than techniques, you create a foundation that supports success across all contexts, challenges, and changes. When I examine the leadership philosophy of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled the most powerful empire in history while maintaining his commitment to Stoic principles, I find a man whose success was built not on political techniques, but on unchanging truths about human nature and virtue. Aurelius faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and enormous pressures that would have destroyed leaders dependent on situational strategies. Yet he maintained his effectiveness and integrity because his leadership was rooted in principles, justice, wisdom, courage, and self-discipline. These principles guided his decisions regardless of external circumstances. Aurelius's meditations reveal the daily practice of principle-centered living. Each morning, he reminded himself of fundamental truths about duty, virtue, and service. Each evening, he examined whether his actions had aligned with his principles. This systematic practice of principle application created unshakable character. In studying the teachings of Jordan Peterson, the clinical psychologist and author who has influenced millions through his emphasis on personal responsibility and meaning, I find a modern application of principle-centered thinking. Peterson's impact comes not from novel techniques, but from articulating eternal truths about human flourishing. Peterson teaches what he calls fundamental principles of human existence: taking responsibility for your life, speaking truth regardless of consequences, standing up straight with your shoulders back, and treating yourself like someone you are responsible for helping. These principles work across all cultures and circumstances because they align with unchanging aspects of human nature. The deception of technique-focused thinking creates what I call success addiction, the compulsive pursuit of new methods, without developing the character necessary to implement any method consistently. People become collectors of knowledge rather than practitioners of wisdom. Consider the difference between someone who learns a new time management system every few months and someone who embodies the principle of disciplined focus. The system chaser experiences temporary improvements followed by inevitable reversion. The principle-centered person consistently demonstrates focused productivity, regardless of which specific system they employ. Principle-centered success is self-reinforcing because principles develop character, and character enables the consistent application of any effective technique. Technique-focused success is self-defeating because techniques without character create temporary results that cannot be sustained. Chapter 2. The foundation of all achievement: character. Character is the invisible foundation upon which all visible success is built. Without character, talent remains undisciplined, opportunity remains unexploited, and achievement remains temporary. With character, even modest abilities can create extraordinary results that stand the test of time. The ancient Greeks understood this principle through their concept of arete, excellence of character that manifests in all areas of life. They recognized that external achievements without internal excellence were hollow victories that brought neither satisfaction nor lasting impact. George Washington exemplified character-based leadership throughout his life, but never more clearly than when he voluntarily relinquished power after serving as president. This act of self-restraint shocked the world and established the foundation for peaceful democratic transitions that continue today. Washington's character was not accidental. It was systematically developed through daily practices of virtue cultivation. As a young man, he copied the rules of civility and decent behavior, training himself in courtesy, respect, and proper conduct. He understood that character is built through consistent application of right principles in small matters. Stephen Covey, author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, built his entire philosophy around character-based effectiveness rather than personality-based techniques. Covey distinguished between the character ethic that dominated success literature before 1920 and the personality ethic that has dominated since. Covey's research revealed that lasting success comes from developing character traits like integrity, humility, courage, and justice, rather than learning techniques for managing impressions or manipulating others. His 7 habits are actually principles of character development disguised as productivity methods. Character manifests in several essential dimensions that determine the quality and sustainability of success. Integrity means alignment between values, words, and actions. People of integrity do what they say they will do, when they say they will do it, regardless of changing circumstances or competing pressures. This creates trust, which is the foundation of all meaningful relationships and opportunities. Courage means doing what is right despite fear, opposition, or personal cost. Physical courage faces external threats, moral courage faces internal temptations and social pressures. Both forms are essential for principle-centered success. Justice means giving others what they deserve based on merit, effort, and contribution, rather than favoritism, politics, or personal advantage. Just leaders create environments where excellence is rewarded and mediocrity is not enabled. Temperance means self-discipline and moderation in all things. It includes the ability to delay gratification, control emotions, and maintain perspective during both success and failure. Character development requires what the Stoics called daily practice of virtue. This involves consciously choosing the right action in every situation, especially when the right action is difficult or costly. Each choice either strengthens or weakens character. The character-based approach to success explains why some people achieve lasting results while others experience cycles of rise and fall. Character provides the internal stability necessary to handle both success and failure without losing direction or integrity. Consider the difference between entrepreneurs who build lasting companies and those who experience rapid rise followed by dramatic collapse. The sustainable entrepreneurs possess character traits that enable them to make difficult decisions, maintain standards during pressure, and preserve relationships through challenges. Character also determines how others respond to your leadership and influence. People follow character more than charisma, trust integrity more than intelligence, and respect consistency more than cleverness. Character-based influence grows stronger over time rather than weaker. Chapter 3: The Wisdom of Ancient Principles. The greatest achievements in human history have been built upon principles that were ancient even when they were first recorded. These eternal truths transcend culture, technology, and circumstance because they align with fundamental aspects of human nature and universal laws of success. Confucius, whose teachings have influenced Chinese civilization for over 25 centuries, understood that lasting social order must be built upon unchanging principles of virtue, respect, and proper relationships. His philosophy survived countless political changes because it addressed eternal human needs. Confucius taught what he called rectification of names, the principle that words should correspond to reality, that titles should reflect actual character, and that positions should be earned through merit rather than manipulation. This principle creates trust and order in any social system. His concept of humaneness, or benevolence, established the principle that true leadership serves others rather than exploiting them. Leaders who embody Ren naturally attract followers because their authority is based on moral character rather than coercive power. In studying the philosophical foundations of modern leadership development, I find remarkable alignment between ancient wisdom and contemporary research. Simon Sinek's start with why philosophy echoes the ancient principle that purpose precedes technique in creating lasting influence. Sinek teaches that great leaders inspire action by clarifying their deepest purpose rather than perfecting their persuasion techniques. This principle worked for Moses leading the Israelites, for Churchill rallying Britain, and for modern leaders building purpose-driven organizations. The ancient Stoic principle of focus on what you can control provides the foundation for effective action in any era. Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca all taught that success comes from directing energy toward factors within your influence while accepting factors beyond your control. This principle eliminates the wasted energy that comes from worrying about external circumstances and redirects that energy toward character development and wise action. Modern research on emotional intelligence and resilience confirms the psychological accuracy of this ancient insight. The principle of compound virtue taught by Aristotle explains how small acts of character development create exponential growth in capability and influence over time. Just as compound interest creates exponential financial growth, compound virtue creates exponential character growth. Aristotle taught that virtue is developed through practice, that we become virtuous by acting virtuously, courageous by acting courageously, and just by acting justly. Each virtuous act makes the next virtuous act easier and more natural, creating an upward spiral of character development. The ancient principle of know thyself, inscribed at the Temple of Apollo at Delphi, remains the foundation of all personal development. Self-knowledge enables realistic goal setting, honest self-assessment, and authentic relationship building. Modern psychology has validated this ancient wisdom through research on self-awareness as the foundation of emotional intelligence, leadership effectiveness, and personal fulfillment. The most successful people are those who most accurately understand their strengths, weaknesses, values, and motivations. The principle of service before self appears in every great philosophical and religious tradition because it aligns with fundamental laws of human flourishing. Those who seek to serve others naturally attract the support, resources, and opportunities necessary for their own success. This principle explains why the greatest leaders throughout history have been those who subordinated personal ambition to higher purposes. Their service orientation created trust, loyalty, and cooperation that enabled achievements impossible through purely selfish motivation. Chapter 4: The Roman Blueprint for Excellence. The Roman Empire, which dominated the Western world for over 1,000 years, was built upon principles of discipline, duty, and systematic excellence that remain relevant for personal and organizational success today. The Roman approach to achievement emphasized character development, strategic thinking, and institutional building over individual brilliance or temporary advantages. The Roman concept of virtus encompassed courage, excellence, and moral strength as integrated qualities essential for leadership. Romans understood that technical skill without character creates temporary success, while character with skill creates lasting influence and achievement. Roman military success was built not on superior weapons or tactics, which often existed among their enemies, but on superior discipline, training, and systematic approach to warfare. Roman legions succeeded because every soldier understood his role, trusted his comrades, and followed proven principles of combat. This systematic approach to excellence created what historians call Roman military machine, an organization where individual capabilities were multiplied through disciplined cooperation and adherence to proven principles. The whole became far greater than the sum of its parts. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated principle-centered leadership during some of the most challenging periods in Roman history. Faced with plagues, barbarian invasions, and internal rebellions, he maintained effectiveness by applying Stoic principles to every decision and challenge. Aurelius's daily practice of philosophical reflection, recorded in his Meditations, shows how principle-centered thinking enables clear decision-making under pressure. He regularly reminded himself of fundamental truths about duty, mortality, and virtue that guided his actions regardless of circumstances. The Roman principle of duty before self created leaders who could sacrifice personal comfort for organizational success. This principle enabled Romans to build infrastructure, institutions, and systems that lasted centuries because they were designed to serve purposes greater than individual benefit. Roman engineering achievements, roads, aqueducts, buildings, demonstrate how principle-centered thinking creates lasting value. Romans built for permanence rather than expedience, understanding that short-term savings often create long-term costs while quality construction serves for generations. The Roman legal system, which forms the foundation of modern Western law, was built upon principles of justice, evidence, and systematic procedure rather than arbitrary authority or personal preference. These principles created stability and predictability that enabled commerce, innovation, and social development. Roman administrative success came from systematic delegation based on clear principles rather than personal relationships or political favoritism. Competent administrators could govern distant provinces effectively because they operated according to established principles rather than requiring constant personal direction. The Roman approach to citizenship emphasized responsibility and contribution rather than rights and benefits. Romans understood that strong societies require citizens who prioritize collective good over individual advantage, creating upward spirals of mutual benefit. Modern organizations can apply Roman principles through systematic excellence, clear authority structures, merit-based advancement, and emphasis on institutional values over personal preferences. The most successful companies often operate like well-functioning Roman institutions. The Roman principle of continuous improvement involves systematically learning from both successes and failures to refine methods and approaches over time. Romans adopted the best practices of conquered peoples while maintaining their core principles, creating synthesis that strengthened the empire. The decline of Rome demonstrates what happens when principles are abandoned for expedience. As Romans prioritized short-term political gain over long-term institutional health, the character and systems that created the empire gradually eroded, leading to collapse. Chapter 5: Eastern Wisdom for Western Achievement. The philosophical traditions of the East offer profound insights into principle-centered success that complement and enhance Western approaches to achievement. These ancient teachings emphasize internal cultivation, systematic practice, and harmony between individual excellence and collective benefit. The Confucian principle of self-cultivation recognizes that external achievement must be built upon internal development. Confucius taught that personal virtue is the foundation of family harmony, which is the foundation of social order, which is the foundation of effective governance. This principle applies to modern leadership through the understanding that organizational excellence requires individual excellence from leaders. You cannot give what you do not possess, and you cannot lead others to destinations you have not reached yourself. Confucian emphasis on lifelong learning established the principle that true expertise requires continuous study and practice rather than initial training followed by static application. This principle is especially relevant in our rapidly changing economy, where continuous adaptation is essential for success. The Taoist principle of Wu-Wei, effortless action, teaches that the highest effectiveness comes from acting in harmony with natural principles rather than forcing outcomes through excessive effort. This principle guides strategic thinking about when to act, when to wait, and how to achieve maximum results with minimum waste. Lao Tzu's teachings about leadership emphasize humility, service, and leading by example, rather than domination or manipulation. The best leaders are those who develop others so effectively that people feel they achieve success themselves rather than being controlled by external authority. The Buddhist principle of mindfulness provides the foundation for effective decision-making through present moment awareness and clear perception of reality without emotional distortion. Mindful leaders make better decisions because they see situations clearly rather than through filters of fear, desire, or ego. Buddhist emphasis on interdependence recognizes that individual success is connected to collective well-being. This principle guides ethical decision-making and sustainable business practices that create value for all stakeholders, rather than extracting value for individual benefit. The Hindu concept of dharma, righteous duty, teaches that true fulfillment comes from aligning your actions with your nature, capabilities, and responsibilities, rather than pursuing generic definitions of success. This principle guides authentic career development and purpose-driven achievement. Eastern meditation practices develop the mental discipline necessary for principle-centered living. Regular meditation cultivates the inner stillness, emotional regulation, and clear thinking that enable consistent application of principles under pressure. The integration of Eastern and Western principles creates what I call holistic excellence, achievement that encompasses both external results and internal development, both individual success and collective benefit, both material prosperity and spiritual fulfillment. Modern leaders who successfully integrate Eastern wisdom include those who practice mindfulness while pursuing aggressive business goals, who emphasize service while building wealth, and who maintain inner peace while handling external pressures. The Eastern principle of patient persistence teaches that sustainable success requires long-term thinking and consistent effort, rather than seeking immediate results through intense but unsustainable activity. This principle guides systematic skill development and relationship building. Eastern approaches to conflict resolution emphasize finding harmony and mutual benefit rather than defeating opponents. This principle creates sustainable solutions that preserve relationships while addressing legitimate concerns of all parties. Chapter 6. The Modern Renaissance of Ancient Wisdom. We are witnessing a remarkable renaissance of ancient wisdom in modern success literature, as contemporary thinkers rediscover that eternal principles provide more reliable guidance than constantly changing techniques. This renaissance demonstrates the timeless relevance of principle-centered thinking for contemporary challenges. The modern research on emotional intelligence, pioneered by psychologist Daniel Goleman, validates ancient teachings about the importance of self-awareness, self-regulation, and social skills for effective leadership. These new discoveries are actually rediscoveries of wisdom that philosophers have taught for millennia. Goleman's research demonstrates that technical skills account for only about 20% of leadership effectiveness, while emotional intelligence accounts for 80%. This confirms the ancient understanding that character and wisdom matter more than technique and knowledge for sustainable success. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset echoes the ancient Stoic teaching that how you think about challenges determines whether they strengthen or weaken you. The growth mindset, believing that abilities can be developed through effort, is simply a modern articulation of the ancient principle of continuous self-improvement. Dweck's findings that praising effort rather than talent creates better long-term results validates the ancient emphasis on virtue and character development over natural gifts or inherited advantages. This principle guides both personal development and organizational culture creation. Modern research on resilience confirms ancient teachings about the importance of focusing on what you can control while accepting what you cannot control. Resilient people naturally apply Stoic principles without necessarily studying Stoic philosophy. The contemporary emphasis on authentic leadership reflects ancient teachings about the importance of integrity and genuine character for sustainable influence. Authentic leaders naturally embody the principle that lasting authority comes from character rather than position or manipulation. Viktor Frankl's logotherapy developed through his experiences in Nazi concentration camps, demonstrates the ancient principle that meaning and purpose provide the foundation for resilience and achievement. Frankl's insights about choosing one's response to circumstances echo Stoic teachings about internal freedom. Frankl's observation that those who have a why to live can bear with almost any how validates the ancient understanding that purpose-driven action creates extraordinary capability and endurance. This principle guides both personal goal setting and organizational mission development. The modern rediscovery of mindfulness meditation in business and education settings demonstrates the practical value of ancient contemplative practices for decision-making, stress management, and creative problem-solving. Companies like Google, Apple, and Intel have integrated mindfulness training into their cultures because they recognize that ancient practices for mental cultivation enhance modern performance requirements. This integration creates what could be called contemplative capitalism. The modern emphasis on servant leadership, popularized by Robert Greenleaf, directly reflects ancient teachings about leadership as service rather than domination. Servant leaders embody the principle that authority is earned through contribution rather than claimed through position. Contemporary research on happiness and well-being consistently validates ancient teachings about the importance of virtue, meaningful relationships, and contribution to others for life satisfaction. The hedonic treadmill research confirms ancient warnings about seeking happiness through external accumulation. The modern understanding of systems thinking reflects ancient teachings about interconnectedness and the importance of considering long-term consequences rather than just immediate results. Systems thinkers naturally apply the principle of considering the whole rather than just the parts. Chapter 7: Building Character in the Digital Age. The digital age presents unique challenges to character development that require conscious application of ancient principles to modern circumstances. While technology offers unprecedented opportunities for learning and connection, it also creates new temptations and distractions that can undermine character development. The principle of delayed gratification becomes more important than ever in an era of instant everything. Social media platforms, designed to provide immediate feedback and satisfaction, can erode the patience and persistence necessary for long-term character development and achievement. The ancient practice of daily reflection and self-examination becomes essential for maintaining character in an environment designed to keep your attention constantly external. Regular periods of silence and contemplation provide the space necessary for character development. Cal Newport, author of Digital Minimalism, provides a modern framework for applying ancient principles of temperance and focus to technology use. Newport's research demonstrates that the most successful people in the digital age are those who use technology intentionally rather than compulsively. Newport's concept of deep work, the ability to focus without distraction on cognitively demanding tasks, requires the same mental discipline that ancient philosophers developed through contemplative practices. This capability becomes increasingly valuable as it becomes increasingly rare. The digital age amplifies the importance of integrity because information spreads faster and farther than ever before. Character flaws that might have remained local in previous eras can now become global knowledge within hours, making authenticity more important than ever. Social media creates new temptations toward pride, envy, and comparison that require conscious application of humility and contentment. The ancient practice of focusing on your own progress rather than comparing yourself to others becomes essential for mental health and character development. The principle of truth-telling becomes more complex in an era of information abundance and algorithmic filtering. Developing the wisdom to discern truth from falsehood requires the same critical thinking skills that ancient philosophers cultivated through logical reasoning and evidence evaluation. Digital communication requires conscious application of ancient principles about courtesy, respect, and constructive dialogue. The anonymity and distance of online interaction can erode the natural feedback loops that encourage civil behavior in face-to-face relationships. The digital age creates new opportunities for service and contribution, that can enhance character development. Online platforms enable individuals to share knowledge, support causes, and help others on a scale that was impossible in previous eras. The ancient principle of moderation applies to information consumption as well as physical consumption. Just as ancient philosophers warned against overindulgence in food or pleasure, modern character development requires moderation in news consumption, social media use, and digital entertainment. Digital technology can either support or undermine character development depending on how it is used. Used intentionally, technology can enhance learning, facilitate meaningful relationships, and amplify positive impact. Used compulsively, can erode attention, fragment relationships, and diminish real-world engagement. The digital age requires developing what could be called technological wisdom, the ability to use technology in service of character development and meaningful achievement, rather than allowing technology to use you for its creator's purposes. Building character in the digital age requires conscious design of your information environment, intentional cultivation of real-world relationships, and regular practice of ancient disciplines that develop inner strength and wisdom. Chapter 8: The Leadership Principles That Transcend Time. Throughout history, the most effective leaders have been those who embody timeless principles rather than relying solely on contemporary techniques or personal charisma. These principle-centered leaders create lasting positive change because their influence is based on universal truths about human nature and effective action. The principle of leading by example has remained constant across all eras and cultures. People follow what leaders do more than what they say, and they are inspired by authentic demonstrations of the values and behaviors that leaders espouse. Alexander the Great led his armies into battle personally, sharing the dangers and hardships he asked his soldiers to endure. This personal courage and shared sacrifice created extraordinary loyalty and effectiveness because his leadership was based on demonstrated character rather than positional authority. Abraham Lincoln demonstrated the principle of moral courage by maintaining his commitment to ending slavery despite enormous political pressure and personal cost. His willingness to sacrifice political advantage for moral principle created the foundation for lasting, positive change. The principle of servant leadership appears consistently among the most effective leaders throughout history. Leaders who see their role as serving others rather than being served by others naturally create environments where people voluntarily contribute their best efforts. Jesus of Nazareth demonstrated servant leadership by washing his disciples' feet, teaching that true leadership involves humility and service. This principle has influenced leadership thinking for 2 millennia because it aligns with fundamental human needs for respect and dignity. Martin Luther King Jr. embodied servant leadership by dedicating his life to serving the cause of justice and equality, ultimately sacrificing his life for principles greater than personal benefit. His influence continues to grow decades after his death because it was based on eternal principles rather than temporary techniques. The principle of visionary thinking enables leaders to see possibilities that others cannot see and to inspire action toward long-term goals despite short-term obstacles and setbacks. Visionary leaders think in terms of decades and generations rather than months and quarters. Winston Churchill demonstrated visionary leadership by recognizing the Nazi threat before others and maintaining hope for victory during Britain's darkest hours. His ability to see beyond immediate circumstances and communicate compelling visions of the future enabled extraordinary collective effort. The principle of principled decision-making guides leaders to make choices based on enduring values rather than temporary convenience or popular opinion. This creates consistency and trust that enables long-term influence and effectiveness. Nelson Mandela demonstrated principled decision-making by choosing reconciliation over revenge after decades of imprisonment and oppression. His commitment to justice and forgiveness created the foundation for peaceful transition in South Africa and inspired leaders worldwide. The principle of developing others recognizes that a leader's ultimate success is measured by the success of those they lead. Great leaders multiply their influence by developing other leaders, rather than creating dependence on their personal capabilities. John Wooden, the legendary basketball coach, embodied the principle of developing others by focusing on character development as much as athletic skill. His players achieved extraordinary success both during and after their athletic careers because he developed the whole person rather than just basketball abilities. The principle of continuous learning enables leaders to adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining core values and purposes. Principle-centered leaders study constantly, but apply consistent principles to new situations rather than constantly changing their fundamental approach. These timeless leadership principles work across all cultures, industries, and circumstances because they are based on unchanging aspects of human nature rather than temporary conditions or cultural fashions. Chapter 9: Implementing Ancient Wisdom in Modern Life. The greatest challenge in applying ancient wisdom to modern life is translating timeless principles into contemporary practices that fit within the demands and opportunities of today's world. This translation requires understanding both the eternal aspects of human nature and the unique characteristics of our current era. The daily practice of virtue, which formed the foundation of ancient philosophical life, can be adapted to modern circumstances through systematic character development routines that fit within contemporary schedules and responsibilities. Morning principle practice. Begin each day by reviewing fundamental principles that will guide your decisions and actions. This might involve reading from philosophical texts, reflecting on personal values, or setting intentions based on character rather than just achievement goals. The ancient practice of examining your conscience each evening can be modernized as a daily review process where you evaluate whether your actions aligned with your principles, what you learned from challenges, and how you can improve tomorrow. Principle-based decision-making develop a systematic approach to important decisions that considers not just immediate benefits but long-term consequences, impact on character, and alignment with core values. Create decision criteria based on principles rather than just outcomes. The ancient emphasis on mentorship and wisdom-seeking can be applied through systematic relationship building with people who embody the principles you want to develop. Seek mentors, join mastermind groups, and build relationships with principle-centered individuals. Study of exemplars. Systematically study the lives and practices of people throughout history who embodied the principles you want to develop. Read biographies, analyze their decision-making processes, and identify patterns you can apply to your own life. The ancient practice of philosophical dialogue can be modernized through participation in discussion groups, book clubs, or online communities focused on principle-centered living and character development. Principle-centered goal setting. Instead of setting goals based solely on external achievements, set goals that include character development, relationship enhancement, and contribution to others. Measure progress in virtue as well as in visible accomplishments. The ancient understanding of education as character formation, rather than just information transfer, can guide your approach to continuous learning. Choose educational experiences that develop wisdom and character, not just knowledge and skills. Service integration. Systematically integrate service to others into your personal and professional life. Look for opportunities to apply your skills and resources to benefit others, understanding that service develops character while creating positive impact. The ancient practice of simplicity and contentment can be applied through conscious choices about lifestyle, consumption, and status seeking that align with your values rather than social pressures or marketing messages. Principle-centered productivity. Organize your time and energy around principle-based priorities rather than just urgent demands. Use productivity systems that support character development and meaningful achievement rather than just efficiency. The ancient emphasis on wisdom over cleverness can guide your approach to problem-solving and decision-making. Seek solutions that address root causes rather than just symptoms, and prioritize long-term health over short-term gains. Community building. Actively participate in or create communities that support principle-centered living. Surround yourself with people who share your commitment to character development and meaningful achievement. The key to successful implementation is starting with small, consistent practices rather than attempting dramatic life changes. Character development through principle application requires patience, persistence, and systematic practice over extended periods. Chapter 10: The Eternal Return on Investment. The ultimate measure of any success philosophy is not the immediate results it produces, but the long-term transformation it creates in the lives of those who practice it. Principle-centered living offers what I call the eternal return on investment, benefits that compound over time and create lasting value that extends beyond individual lifetime. Unlike techniques that become obsolete or strategies that depend on specific circumstances, principles create value that increases over time. Character development is the only investment that cannot be taken away by external circumstances and grows stronger through both success and adversity. The compound effect of principle-centered living creates exponential returns in multiple dimensions: personal fulfillment, relationship quality, professional effectiveness, and societal contribution. Each day of living by principles makes the next day easier and more rewarding. Consider the lifetime trajectory of someone who consistently applies principles of integrity, courage, justice, and wisdom versus someone who relies on techniques, manipulation, and expedient choices. The principle-centered person builds trust, respect, and genuine influence that grows stronger over decades, while the technique-dependent person experiences cycles of temporary success followed by inevitable setbacks. The eternal return on investment manifests in what philosophers call eudaimonia, a state of flourishing that comes from living in accordance with your highest nature and deepest values. This flourishing creates sustainable satisfaction that doesn't depend on external circumstances or comparative achievement. Marcus Aurelius, despite facing enormous pressures as emperor, maintained inner peace and satisfaction because his life was built on principles that external circumstances could not disturb. His meditations reveal a man who found deep fulfillment through virtue regardless of external conditions. The principle-centered approach to success creates what I call anti-fragile achievement, success that actually grows stronger through challenges rather than being weakened by them. When your foundation is character rather than circumstances, difficulties become opportunities for growth rather than threats to survival. This anti-fragile quality explains why principle-centered leaders often perform best during crises. Their decisions are guided by unchanging values rather than changing circumstances, creating stability and confidence that enables clear thinking and effective action during uncertainty. The eternal return on investment extends beyond individual benefit to generational impact. Principle-centered individuals naturally become positive influences on their families, communities, and organizations, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond their personal sphere. Consider how the principled choices of parents affect their children, how the character of leaders influences their organizations, and how the virtue of citizens strengthens their societies. Principle-centered living creates positive externalities that benefit countless others while building personal character. The legacy aspect of principle-centered success ensures that your influence continues to grow even after your death. Great principles outlive the people who embody them, continuing to influence others through their example, teachings, and institutional contributions. Abraham Lincoln's principled leadership during the Civil War created benefits that continue to compound over 150 years later. His character-based decisions not only preserved the Union, but established principles of equality and justice that continue to guide American development. The eternal return on investment also includes what economists call option value, the increased range of choices and opportunities that come from building character and reputation over time. Principle-centered individuals naturally attract opportunities because others trust their integrity and competence. This option value compounds because each principled choice creates credibility that opens new opportunities, which create platforms for greater service, which develop additional capabilities, which attract even greater opportunities. This creates an upward spiral of expanding influence and impact. The principle-centered approach to success also provides what insurance companies call downside protection. When your success is built on character rather than circumstances, you maintain resilience and capability, even when external conditions become difficult. The financial crisis of 2008 demonstrated this principle clearly. Organizations and individuals built on solid principles weathered the storm better than those dependent on speculation, leverage, or unsustainable practices. Character-based success proved more durable than technique-based success. Perhaps most importantly, principle-centered living creates what Viktor Frankl called meaning that transcends suffering. The deep satisfaction that comes from knowing your life serves purposes greater than personal comfort or achievement. This meaning provides motivation and resilience that external rewards cannot match. The eternal return on investment from principle-centered living cannot be measured in purely financial terms because it includes benefits that transcend monetary. Value, peace of mind, clear conscience, genuine relationships, lasting influence, and the satisfaction of contributing to human flourishing. When you build your life on principles rather than techniques, you create a success that grows stronger with time, influences others positively, and contributes to the advancement of human civilization. This is the true measure of a life well lived and the ultimate return on the investment of principled living. Closing your foundation for eternal success. Now, my friend, you understand the ancient success secret that built empires and creates lasting achievement in every era. You have learned that techniques change with time and circumstance, but principles are eternal. That character is the invisible foundation upon which all visible success is built. Take immediate action to build your life upon the timeless principles that have guided every great leader throughout history. Begin today by identifying the core principles that will guide your decisions and shape your character. Start tomorrow by implementing daily practices of virtue cultivation and principle application. Remember that principle-centered success is not about perfection, but about consistent alignment with your highest values and deepest wisdom. Focus on character development through daily choices, service to others through meaningful contribution, and continuous growth through lifelong learning. Most importantly, understand that when you build your success on principles rather than techniques, you create achievements that transcend your individual lifetime and contribute to the advancement of human civilization. Your character becomes a gift to the world that continues giving long after you are gone. Cultivate integrity that creates unshakable trust. Develop courage that enables right action regardless of consequences. Practice justice that ensures fairness and merit, and pursue wisdom that guides sound judgment in all circumstances. These principles will serve you in every situation and create success that endures. If this message has illuminated the path of principle-centered success, I ask that you like this video and subscribe to join our growing community of character-driven achievers. Together, we are building the Thought Leaders Mindset Community, a gathering of individuals committed to embodying eternal principles in contemporary life. Your principled success elevates all of humanity. When you demonstrate that character and virtue lead to genuine achievement, you inspire others to choose principles over expedience. When you build lasting success through service and integrity, you prove that doing right and doing well are not contradictory, but complementary. Until we meet again, live by principle rather than preference. Choose character over convenience, and build success that serves purposes greater than yourself. The world needs leaders who understand that the ancient secrets of success are not outdated, they are eternal. Your journey of principle-centered success begins not with learning new techniques, but with embodying timeless truths. The question is not whether these principles work. History has proven they do. The question is whether you will have the wisdom to apply them and the character to live by them.